Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me in this exclusive interview. All the way from the city of Corneria in the Lightlet system is Star Fox leader himself, Fox McCloud, portrayed by the very talented Jim Walker. Thank you so much for accepting this interview, and let me just say it's a huge honor to have you on our show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's get started, shall we? Prior to voicing Fox McCloud in Star Fox Assault, what was your occupation? What were you doing before?
Well, so I've been a musician my whole life. And when I used to live in LA, I got into voiceover, and kind of singing jingles was what I ended up starting doing. So I sang a lot of beer commercials and a lot of soda commercials and things like that. And then I started to get into voiceover, and I found I really liked it. And so most of the stuff that I did was all kind of advertising, stuff like that, you know. And people said, "Oh, you got a kind of a nice normal guy voice, you know, so you can sell garden hose at Safeway or whatever the thing was." And so that's mostly the stuff I was doing. And then when I moved to Portland, I was still doing voiceover, but I found that I had a few more video game and more character things coming my way. That's what I was doing. I was playing music and doing voiceover.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you voiced other characters in other video games?
No, I mean, I did a lot of character voices for advertising, for TV commercials and radio commercials and things like that.
So how did you end up voicing Fox McCloud in Star Fox Assault?
I could tell you exactly how it was. I got an audition from my agent up here, and it was for this game called Star Fox, and I knew nothing about the game. I wasn't really a gamer at the time. The audition came with about 15 different characters to try to audition for, and I thought, oh, this is a good chance to like kind of try out a bunch of my voices, my crazy, wacky cartoon voices and things that I really like to do. So I spent a good portion of the day putting all of these auditions together, doing all these crazy voices, and the very last write-up in the audition was for the lead, which was Fox McCloud. And I thought to myself, I'll never get this because they're probably going to hire someone out of LA to do it. So I just did my regular voice, which is this voice. And a couple days later, they called and told me that I got it.
So did you audition for any other characters in the game?
Probably all of them. I mean, there was any male voice I probably did, because there was a ton of them, and I did them all day. I did one other voice for that thing. I'm trying to remember what it was now. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. I mean, Star Fox Assault was released here in America in 2005.
Oh my God. Oh boy. Yeah, time does go by. So yeah, there was something. Peppy was. I think maybe that was the other voice I did, and they had me doing a lot of kind of screaming and weird little oddball things like that when I was actually at the session. So I don't know where it all ended up. We recorded for 2 days up in Seattle at a recording studio called Bad Animals, which is the classic rock band Heart. That was their studio. That they were doing a lot of post-production out of there, and that was where we recorded the session for it. And it was 2 days, probably 5 or 6 hours a day, and I just had this script that was the size of a telephone book, and I just did it. And they had a guy who was from Japan, from Nintendo, and his translator. They sat there on the other side of the glass. And are you familiar with the old film, the Bill Murray film, Lost in Translation?
Yes, actually, that's one of my favorite ones.
Me too. And you know this, every time he's doing the whiskey commercial and they have the conversations, then the guy comes back and says, "More intensity." That's exactly what happened. I would be screaming my head off, and the guy would look at the translator and say something in Japanese, and then the translator would say to me, "More intensity." And it happened all day long, both days. It was hilarious because I had just seen that movie.
You were just mimicking off Bill Murray.
Exactly.
You're like,
it's story time.
You're like, oh, so that's the way he felt.
Right.
Did you end up working with any of the other voice actors, such as Alesia Gladwell, who voiced Crystal the Fox?
Nobody. I was all alone in this big recording studio in the big room where they would record like bands and orchestras and stuff like that. And I was just all by myself behind the microphone, looking at the two guys behind the glass and the engineer. I mean, the whole time I was reading the script, I had no idea what was going on because I wasn't interacting with anybody and I was only reading my lines.
Back in 2016 or 2017, I don't quite remember, we had the honor of interviewing Alesia Gladwell, who voiced Crystal, and although she's now out of the voice acting industry, She is now herself a producer and director of commercials and short films. Although she left the voiceover community, she has done a lot for herself. Now that we're talking about her and Star Fox Assault, let's go ahead and listen to the original audio file of Alesia Gladwell's audition for Crystal.
Alesia Gladwell. That's the way, Fox. You're looking good. But so many casualties. So many noble sacrifices. I'm sensing a distress call from the planet Sauria. A mission together at last. How lovely. Would you like to visit again? Just us two.
So there you have it, the original audition file from 2005.
I can tell you one thing that I do remember about that session is I have a really good friend in Seattle who I hadn't seen in a couple of years. So the night before the session, my wife Kim and I went out with him, and we ended up hitting just about every bar in Seattle. I was really hungover that first day during the session. That's probably not what anybody wants to hear, but that's the truth.
So did you play any of the games?
No, I didn't have it. I liked sort of more computer-based games that would come out once in a while, and this is back in the day. So things like Doom and Marathon and those kind of games that came out in the 90s and things like that. I thought those were really fun, but I never had a gaming system that I messed around with, So I would kind of wait for computer games to come out.
Moving on to Super Smash Bros. Brawl, how did you end up voicing Fox and Leon in that game?
Yeah, as I recall, they ended up pulling audio from our original session and using that for that other game.
Oh, so you didn't go back to the audio booth and did...
No, I didn't. I didn't go back up and do it. Yeah, I just remember they called me up and said there's another game, and I went, oh boy, I'm going to go back up to Seattle, and they went, we're going to pull audio from the other one. I went, okay.
So I assume they called to tell you that you'll be getting residuals for the game?
Yes. Don't worry, you're going to get paid. So, okay.
That's funny because Brawl had a lot of fighting sounds and grunts and hits and screams of deaths, something that was not present in Star Fox Assault. Although you did have the scream of death if you were to walk off the map or if you were to fall off a cliff or waterfall.
Right. I remember they had me in the last half hour, the second day, the second final day we recorded that. About the last half hour, 40 minutes was all fighting noises. So I remember doing a lot of and all that kind of thing, and then doing at the end like a lot of death screams where I would just get as loud as I could possibly scream, as hard as I could possibly scream, and I walked out of there pretty raw.
Can you give us a little sample of that? All right, you guys, for your own protection, we decided to lower this part down. Yeah, there was one like that where if you I think in the game if you walk out of bounds within that playing map thing that would happen.
Fall off the side or get electrocuted or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, right. I remember that.
So just to review what you said earlier, your recording sessions for Star Fox Assault only lasted 2 days?
2 days, yeah. Long sessions, though, like 5 hours, something like that. So it was a lot of work, and it was not much break or anything like that. We just kind of went constantly, just plowed through the script.
Your name does not pop up in any other game or animation series ever again. What happened afterwards? I mean, why didn't you come back and voice Fox McCloud in the preceding games or any other character in any other game or animation?
It's funny you mentioned that. Well, here's what happened after Assault is that after I did the initial sessions, I mean, I went home and kind of forgot all about it because it was kind of like another gig, right? So now in 2004, 2005, Wi-Fi was kind of just starting. People in the wide way, like a lot of people were getting it. It had been around, but it wasn't so prevalent. After I did the game, I like I said, I just kind of went on with my life. And about 3 years later, all of a sudden, I started getting all these emails from young people who had played the game, and they were like, "Are you the guy who does the voice of Fox McCloud?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Oh, dude, I love that game." I was like, "Oh, cool, thank you." And then this kept happening, and it was happening kind of in this 3-month period. I got all these emails, and it turned out that I guess there's a site called Voice Actor some voice actor site.
Behind the voice actors.
That's it. Behind the voice actors.
Yes.
So I guess that site had kind of just gone up, and people found me and were, sending me these really nice emails. But this is a couple of years or 3 years after all this stuff happened. I can't remember what the game was after the Smash Brothers, but someone sent me an email and said, "Are you doing the voice for whatever the game was?" And I said, "No, I haven't heard anything about it." Yeah, and then somebody else sent me an email, "Are you going to do the voice?" And I said, "No, I haven't been asked to do it." And honestly, that's all I know about it, is that I wasn't asked to do it again. So they went off with somebody else. So that's fine. That's kind of the way that things go, I mean, maybe in 10 years they'll call me back to do it again.
Hopefully.
Who knows? Stranger things have happened. It's just funny. It was one of those things that I did, and I kind of, went on with my life, and then it came back when people got more aware of it online. People have been really, really nice to me. Like, I've seen some of those sites where they just tear people apart who've done the voice. That guy sucks. And I'm just like, damn, man, that's pretty mean, But I've kind of noticed that people have been sort of nice to me, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, a lot of people don't enjoy what we in the industry call, and I'm pretty sure you know about this, dubs, where you just kind of replacing the original audio to what it was. In this case, it was Japanese, and you replaced it with English. So a lot of people, especially with animation and video games, they're not, with fans at least, they're not that popular, just because a lot of the English voice actors, according to the fans, don't fit the character or don't fit the original Japanese voice.
Yeah, and I do remember, now that you are bringing this up, it's coming back to me, that I would hear the original Japanese, and then I would have to fit it into that kind of close to that space, and it wasn't that easy, because you had to kind of like try to bring the same emotion to it in the same amount of time in a different language. I remember thinking to myself, "Wow, this is really fun." It's kind of hard, but it's challenging, and it's fun to act like this.
How come you weren't in any other game, or how come you didn't go into full-on voiceover, though, or into animation is what I mean?
No one ever asked me. And every once in a while I'll get a audition for a video game, and I'll do the audition, and I get a lot of auditions, but most of the stuff that I do is fairly normal voiceover stuff and kind of announcery things like that. I was the voice of BedSmart mattresses for about 5 years, and that was really fun too, because it was just like, and that's the fun thing, is like doing voiceovers. Like, no one knows that's me, no one cares. It's just I was the voice of BedSmart for a while, and it helped me pay off my house and my car.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. It's a living.
So if I understand you correctly, you're still auditioning for spots in video games?
I rarely get a video game, but once in a while. But I do get, the more normal stuff for regular advertising. I think the calls that I get are for the sort of nice guy next door kind of voice. I sound like a pretty normal guy, I guess.
Whatever that means.
Hey, whatever that means, exactly. But I guess I sound kind of normal, so I don't sound like the big FM kind of voice or anything like that. I just sound like a normal guy. And I look at voiceover as something I do that's really fun, and I enjoy it, and I like the voiceover community in Portland. There's a lot of great people that work up here, really super, super talented, cool people. But like I said, mostly where my mind is music.
So that would be your priority then, music.
Yeah. I have a lot of albums out, and I do music for film and TV and things like that when that kind of work comes up, which I love. TV commercials, doing music for that stuff, and the occasional film that comes my way, and I love that. It's really fun. I get to, because doing instrumental music for TV and radio is totally different than songwriting and singing. And so it's just two completely different parts of the same animal that are really fun to do. songwriting is something that comes to me pretty easy, and singing and this and that. But instrumental music, to create a mood for a scene is really a different kind of thing, and it's changed so much over the years. Whereas it used to be that on old TV shows and stuff like that, the instrumental music would be very melodic, and you'd come up with a melody, an actual like line that you could kind of remember. But nowadays, music in TV and film feels more sound design, more atmospheric, more ethereal, and I like that too. I mean, that stuff I love. I love making really creepy music. One of the things that composers would do back in the day, like John Williams or somebody like that, who was so great at this, you would have a character and you would assign a melody to the character, whether it's the shark in Jaws going da 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 da, or whatever. Everybody would have their own specific melody, and that would come in. A counter melody would come in when two characters would interact and this and that. And it doesn't really go like that anymore as far as melody, but sonically and sound-wise, it does do that. There are sounds that represent people and tones and I don't know, sort of atmospheres, and it's got its own it's got its own world. It's cool stuff. I love it.
Gotcha. So you never did leave the voiceover career behind. It's more like the location in which you're currently in only offers or is limited to commercial and industrial voiceover, as opposed here in Los Angeles, where you can find a lot of animation and entertainment voiceover work.
Yeah, and I also really have never waved my arms around to do voices for video games. That happened to be something that kind of fell into my lap a little bit, and I'm super glad to have done it, and I would love to do more because I love doing character voices, but I'm not really chasing it, because I'm doing other things. So
and like you said, your primary focus is music, which I have listened to a few of your tracks on your website, and it's pretty good. I like it.
Oh, thank you.
It's a sort of a soft rock kind of feel. I mean, the tracks that I listen to anyway.
It's mostly acoustic stuff. Yeah. So I have a bunch of instrumental albums out and a bunch of songwriting albums out. I think I have over 50 albums out.
I assume your tracks and albums are available to purchase on your website?
Yeah, you can stream them or purchase on jvamusic.com. jvamusic.com. John Victor Allen Music.com. I have a bunch of albums out that I've done all the way back to the 80s. I'm 107 years old, and and I have a bunch of instrumental stuff. Some of the stuff that I've done for film and TV, and other stuff that I do that just amuses myself. Some spoken word stuff out. I worked for 22 years with a really great guy up here who was probably the most well-known musician in the Pacific Northwest, a guy named Tim Ellis, who's an amazing musician and guitar player. Him and I had a duo for over 20 years, and unfortunately he passed away a few years ago. We have a bunch of live things out of that duo, representing that duo in that time. So yeah, there's kind of something for everybody, I like to think. Whether you might listen to one record and go, I'm not into this. You go listen to another record and go, oh, this is the same guy.
Well, there you guys have it, Fox McCloud singing songs. He dropped the blaster and picked up a guitar one day and said, you know what, I'm done here.
Exactly. Walk into the sunset.
Yeah. Somewhere in the Lightlet system, he's retired with a guitar and...
I like to imagine that, just him walking away with a guitar.
Going back to you in the booth while doing your lines, what was one fun memory you had while voicing the character?
Well, the screaming part and the grunting and the fighting noises, that was the most fun out of the whole thing. I also remember that I wanted to kind of connect to the guy from Japan who was from Nintendo. I wanted to be able to say something, but I don't speak Japanese. And so I went down to there was like a Barnes & Noble down the street, and I just learned how to say Ohio, which means good afternoon, right?
Actually, it means good morning.
Oh, good morning? Okay, well,
yes.
Thank you. But I walked in and said Ohio, and the guy looked at me like, what? I said, and that's all I got. Sorry.
Japanese lessons with Fox McCloud. So, quick crash course. Ohio means good morning, and to
Yes.
say good evening, you say konbanwa.
Konbawa?
Konbanwa.
Konbanwa.
There you go, konbanwa.
Konbawa.
And then to say good afternoon, if it's like noon, between noon and 6, it would be the regular konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
the Japanese have 3 different greetings and based on the time of day.
It's like in Italian, you say buongiorno, and then in the afternoon and early evening, you say buonasera, and the evening is buonanotte.
Well, I didn't know that. Well, thank you.
I know more Italian than I do Japanese, obviously.
I honestly thought buongiorno meant the frozen pizza. Anyway, back to the interview. Do you have any advice or tips for upcoming voice actors and musicians?
Yeah, well, basically, you got to be flexible. You gotta be able to roll when someone goes. And a lot of times, directions are very vague, and producers are just grasping at straws, and they'll say, "Can you, the classic thing about, can you do it more purple?" Okay, sure, whatever that means. But you got to be able to take direction well, and always have another idea, and be patient, because everyone's trying to figure this out. The thing that I have learned after doing this for a really long time is they pretty much know just by the sound of your voice if they're going to hire you or not. They figure they can train you to act. They can tell you how to say something, but if they don't like the quality of your voice, it doesn't matter how many hoops you jump through to get the gig.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what has Jim learned in decades of doing this. That's what I have learned. You're either going to get it or you won't. There you go.
Right, and I think one thing also that I've learned is that if you don't have to have like a radio or theater background, so long as you can act. If you can
Yes.
bring the character from the page out and bring him to life or her to life, that's enough for you to get a gig. Anyone can read off a page and make it and read the words in English, but not everyone can read them and act at them.
Exactly right. I have some friends. This is one of my favorite stories about voiceover. I have some friends who are they're graphic designers and stuff like that, and they weren't doing very well financially. They had a couple of kids, and things started to kind of go south for them. And I would hear they were progressively doing worse and worse, and I felt really bad for them. And eventually, the woman said to me, "Things have gotten so desperate. We're thinking about getting into voiceover." I thought, wow, everybody just thinks they can open their mouth and do this. There is a skill to it, as you know. Now, it's also very much like doing session work with music. If you come into a recording session and you're a musician, you don't have to be the most amazing musician in the world, but you got to be able to listen to other people, and you got to be able to take direction. And mostly, you got to be able to have another idea. Like if what you're doing is not working and they go try something else, you got to be able to have a few tools in your toolbox and go, oh, okay. But some people only do one thing, and so when someone says, nah, that's not right, they don't even know what to do. I learned it also when I was singing jingles, because a lot of times you go in to sing something and they're like, what else you got? You go, well, like what? They go, can you do it more like blah? You go, okay, and you just do it. And I've also learned that, when someone asks you to do something, you just say yes. Yes, I can do that.
So we both have some kind of experience in this.
That's for sure.
So
Sounds like you're working a lot. You're doing a lot of stuff, so that's cool.
I've done a few animations and only one video game. I'm aiming to do a lead role in a video game someday, so hopefully that happens someday.
Well, I hope so. That's cool.
Anyway, back to the interview, because I feel like we were digressing there. Let's say a remastered version of Star Fox Assault were to come out. Would you like to come back and voice Fox McCloud?
In a heartbeat. I'd love to. I love this kind of work.
I know it's been such a long time since you've done the voice of Fox McCloud, but I was wondering if you would honor us with the voice of Fox?
Landmaster! Team Star Fox, ready for duty. Would that sound like him?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good.
I'll probably put a comparison, maybe.
Team Star Fox, ready for duty.
Funny you mentioned the Landmaster. Speaking of other vehicles used in the game, if you had the chance to fly in an R-Wing, where would you go and why?
I think I would visit planet Earth, but 50 years ago. Can I do that? Is that possible?
Sure,
Can
yeah. I mean,
if you zip around the Earth, enough times like Superman, eventually you'll reverse time.
yes, exactly. Let's leave it at that.
So I'm sticking with my answer. I think it would be really fun to see what life was like 50 years ago here.
I would like to see life. I would like to see life 50 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's all I have to do. Let's just go back 10 months.
Warn everybody.
Yeah. Run.
Oh wow! So it's been great talking to you. Going back to the memory lane.
Crystal, it's been my pleasure. I'm just absolutely grateful to have been involved in the Star Fox series, my small part in the universe. And I really appreciate the fact that the fans have been so nice to me, because that doesn't happen that often. You start going down a message board and there's some cruelty happening within moments. But overall, people have been nice, and I appreciate that. I like nice.
Alright, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in this exclusive interview with the voice of Fox McCloud in Star Fox Assault, Jim Walker. But don't click away yet. We're doing an out-of-this-world giveaway. That's right. Go ahead and subscribe to the Kitsune Network and comment below as to who is your favorite Star Fox character and why. You have the opportunity to win an awesome autographed print signed by the very talented Jim Walker. Thank you for watching, and tune in next week for an awesome interview with the vocalist of Crush 40. Go ahead and follow us on social media. Links down in the description box below. Once more, this is your host Crystal, and I'll see you guys next time.
Let's go, team.